Hello, curious minds, and welcome to this intellectual journey. Have you ever felt that the world makes no sense? That your daily efforts are like pushing a giant rock uphill, only to watch it roll back down again? This image, that of Sisyphus, is at the heart of one of the 20th century's most courageous thinkers. A man who looked us in the eye and told us, yes, life is absurd. But Albert Camus' genius didn't stop at the diagnosis. His true mission was to answer the most difficult question of all. If life is indeed absurd, why not simply end it? How can we find meaning and even happiness in a universe that remains silent? Today, we're going to deconstruct his answer, a path that goes from absurdity to rebellion and from rebellion to love. This isn't just an academic exercise. Camus's philosophy is a survival tool. In our era of anxiety, disinformation, and existential crises, his voice resonates louder than ever. Prepare for a deep dive that might just change the way you view your own existence. Before we begin, a quick note. To bring this narrative to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the atmosphere of what we're discussing. They won't always be a literal representation, but rather a visual accompaniment to let your imagination soar with me. I sincerely hope you enjoy it. To understand Camus, we must first place him. He was born in 1913 in French Algeria into a poor family. He grew up under the scorching Mediterranean sun, a detail that would mark his entire body of work. This duality, poverty and hardship alongside the world's stunning physical beauty, is the first seed of his thought. He saw beauty and suffering always together. He wasn't an armchair philosopher. He was a journalist, playwright, novelist, and an active member of the French resistance against the Nazi occupation. He edited the clandestine newspaper Combat. This experience of fighting against an absurd and murderous tyranny forged his ethics. He saw nihilism in action, the idea that anything is permitted, taken to its most horrific extreme. He is often associated with existentialism alongside Jean-Paul Sartre. And although they were friends and shared coffees in Paris, Camus always rejected the label. He said, "No, I am not an existentialist." His starting point was different. While Sartre began with consciousness, Camus began with sensation, with the physical clash with the world. His major break with Sartre would come later, with the publication of The Rebel. Camus harshly criticized Sartre's support for communist regimes, arguing that justifying violence and concentration camps in the name of a future history was to betray rebellion itself. For Camus, the means mattered as much as the end. This context is vital. Camus doesn't write from an ivory tower. He writes from the trenches, from poverty, from the fight against fascism, and from the pain of decolonization. His philosophy is anchored in the rawest reality, and it all begins with a single word: the absurd. Let's move to the first great cornerstone, the absurd. Camus develops it in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. It begins with one of the most impactful sentences in 20th century philosophy. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Why? Because judging whether life is or is not worth living is to answer the fundamental question. It's crucial to understand this correctly. For Camus, the world itself isn't absurd, it's simply irrational. It has no inherent meaning, and we humans are not absurd either. On the contrary, we are filled with a desperate desire for clarity, for unity, and for meaning. We want the universe to answer us. The absurd is born from the clash. It is the divorce between our mind that demands answers and the irrational silence of the universe. It is the collision between our desire for eternity and the reality of our death. It is not in us, nor is it in the world. It is in the tension that binds them. Camus says we often live without feeling this. We move by inertia, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Work, food, sleep. But one day the why arises. The scenery crumbles. We see the mechanistic nature of our own lives. That is the awakening to the absurd. It's a feeling before it's an idea. Think of it this way. It's like an actor who, in the middle of a play, forgets their lines and suddenly sees the stage, the lights, the audience. They see the artificiality of it all. That feeling of strangeness before the world and even before ourselves is the absurd sensibility. It's feeling like strangers in our own lives. Faced with this discovery, Camus says the temptation is to flee, and he identifies two main forms of escape, two false exits. Both are in their own way a suicide. The first false exit is physical suicide. It's surrender. It's saying, this tension is unbearable, so I will eliminate one of the terms of the conflict myself. Camus rejects this. For him, suicide does not resolve the absurd, it merely nullifies it. It's escaping the problem, not confronting it. The second false exit is more subtle and, for Camus, more dangerous. It is philosophical suicide or the leap of faith. This is what he criticizes in religious thinkers like Kierkegaard or Dostoevsky. It's when, terrified by the absurd, one decides to leap into faith, into God, into an ideology that promises transcendent meaning. Camus respects faith, but philosophically rejects it as an answer to the absurd. Why? Because it's another escape. It nullifies the other term of the conflict, the irrational world. It swaps the unbearable tension of reality for the comfort of an illusion. It is ultimately a denial of human reason, which was what discovered the absurd in the first place. So, if we shouldn't commit physical or philosophical suicide, what on earth do we do? Here comes Camus' answer. It's simple, but incredibly difficult. The answer is don't flee. The answer is to accept the tension, to stay on that narrow ridge between our reason and the irrational world. The true answer to the absurd is lucidity, rebellion, and freedom. To live with the absurd means to be fully conscious of it, not to deny it. It's to keep it alive. It's to live in spite of it. And from this acceptance, 3 consequences are born. The first consequence is my rebellion. If the absurd is my condition, I rebel against it. Mind you, it's not a rebellion to change the universe. That's impossible. It's an internal rebellion. It's the constant no of my consciousness. It's saying, death is my destiny, but I do not passively accept it. The second consequence is my freedom. What am I free from? I am free from the hope of a better future or an afterlife. If there is no after and no divine plan, then I am profoundly free in the now. Free from the rules of a God or a transcendent morality. My only truth is experience. The third consequence is my passion. If this life is all I have, and it is short and absurd, then the only logical response is to live it with maximum intensity. It's not about living better, but about living more. To multiply experiences, to passionately feel the beauty and the pain of the world. And so we arrive at Sisyphus, the central image. Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to push a rock up a mountain, only for it to roll back down just before reaching the top for all eternity. It is the metaphor for useless, hopeless labor. It is the human condition. It is our life. We see Sisyphus striving, sweating, suffering. We see him fail again and again. It is an image of pure tragedy, but Camus asks us to look closer. The moment that interests Camus is not the ascent. It is the descent. The moment Sisyphus walks down the mountain alone to retrieve his rock, in that pause, Camus says Sisyphus is conscious. He knows the futility of his task. He has no hope. And in that moment of lucidity, he is superior to his fate. By being aware of his punishment, he transcends it. The gods punished him, but he owns his consciousness of that punishment. The rock is his thing. His destiny belongs to him. And here comes the phrase that changes everything. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happy? How? Sisyphus is happy because happiness and the absurd are 2 children of the same earth. They are inseparable. Absurd happiness is this tragic victory. It is finding meaning in the struggle itself, not in the final victory. It is the love for the effort itself, for life itself, despite its lack of inherent meaning. Happiness is Sisyphus's act of rebellion. It is saying yes to life, rock and all. This idea of the absurd man is the foundation. But Camus didn't stop there. The myth of Sisyphus was written during the war in a very individualistic tone. The question was, how can I live? But the war and the Nazi occupation showed him that this was not enough. The problem with Sisyphus's answer is that it's solitary. What happens when the absurd is not just my condition, but is actively imposed by other men? What happens when the absurd takes the form of tyranny, murder, plague? This is where the second pillar is born, rebellion. If the myth of Sisyphus asks why not commit suicide, his next great essay, The Rebel, asks why not murder? If there is no God and no rules, why shouldn't I impose my will on others? Why shouldn't I become a tyrant if I have the power? Camus' answer is rebellion. But this time, rebellion is not just an individual no against fate. It is a no spoken to another human being. It is a slave who rises up and tells their master, enough is enough. There's a limit you cannot cross. This is the key moment. The instant the rebel says no, they are also saying yes. What are they saying yes to? They are saying yes to a value they consider more important than their own life. A value they believe is common to all people, dignity, justice. Here, Camus makes a wonderful turn. The rebel, in saying no for themselves, realizes they are defending something that transcends their individuality. They are defending human dignity as such. That's why the fundamental phrase of rebellion is not, I rebel, therefore I exist, but I rebel, therefore we exist. Rebellion for Camus is the birth of solidarity. It is the moment when suffering ceases to be individual and becomes a collective experience. It is the basis of all ethics. In a world without God, the only value we can find is that which we create together in the struggle against injustice. But Camus is very careful. He sharply distinguishes between rebellion and revolution. This is one of his most important ideas and the cause of his dispute with Sartre. Rebellion is a movement that says no to oppression in the name of a limit of human dignity. It remains faithful to its origins. Revolution, on the other hand, is rebellion that betrays itself. It is the one that, in the name of an abstract idea of the future, the classless society, not the thousand-year empire, decides that the end justifies the means. Revolution forgets the limit and begins to justify murder, tyranny, and concentration camps. Camus saw this in fascism and also in Stalinism. He saw how legitimate rebellion against injustice turned into murderous nihilism, into an all-or-nothing logic that destroyed the present in the name of a future that never arrived. For Camus, this was the absurd in its most dangerous form. The true rebel, Camus says, must maintain a permanent tension. They must fight against injustice, but at the same time, they must refuse to become an oppressor. They must accept relativity, moderation, the midday thought, to recognize that we cannot create a perfect world, only a less unjust one. This idea of rebellion and solidarity is at the heart of his great novel, The Plague. It is a masterpiece that explores how an entire community reacts when confronted with the absurd. This time, the absurd is not a mythical rock, but a biological plague that isolates the city of Oran. The plague, of course, is a metaphor. It represents evil, death, exile, the Nazi occupation. It is the absurd in its collective form. It falls upon people randomly, regardless of whether they are good or bad. Faced with this catastrophe, we see all human reactions. There's Father Panelou, who first sees it as divine punishment. They deserve it. But who later, upon seeing an innocent child die, has his faith shaken and joins the fight, albeit from his own logic of faith. His faith also becomes a rebellion. There's Cottard, the criminal, who is happy with the plague because the general confusion allows him to live without fear of arrest. He represents those who benefit from chaos and the misfortune of others. There's Rambert, the foreign journalist, who at first only wants to escape to reunite with his beloved. He tries to use the black market, but in the end decides to stay. He realizes that there can be shame in being happy alone. He joins the fight out of solidarity. And then there is the novel's hero, Dr. Bernard Rieux. Rieux is the quintessential absurd and rebellious hero. He is an atheist. He does not believe in God or in transcendent meaning. He fights the plague day and night, knowing that it is a battle that deep down is lost because the plague will always return. When asked why he does it, Rieux doesn't give grand speeches. He simply says his job is to cure people. He does it out of decency. He is a rebel who fights against creation as it is. His rebellion is the daily practice of compassion and solidarity without hope of a final victory. The plague is Camus' answer to the individualism of Sisyphus. It tells us that the only way to endure the absurd is not alone on our mountain, but together in the city, fighting against the common evil. Rebellion becomes an ethical duty of solidarity. At the end of the novel, the plague recedes. People celebrate, the gates open, but Rieux does not celebrate. He knows something that others forget. He knows that the plague bacillus never dies or disappears for good, and that it would perhaps come about that, for the bane and the enlightenment of men, the plague would rouse up its rats again and send them forth to die in a happy city. It is an eternal warning. The fight against the absurd, against tyranny, against evil is never won forever. It is a constant vigilance. Rebellion is our daily task. We have seen the absurd as a diagnosis and rebellion as an ethical and collective response. But we are missing the third piece of the puzzle. What about personal meaning? What about happiness? This leads us to his most famous and perhaps most disconcerting novel, The Stranger. Published in 1942, The Stranger is the story of Meursault, a French-Algerian clerk. The novel begins with another legendary phrase, "Mother died today," or maybe yesterday, I don't know. This sentence introduces us to a man who seems apathetic, disconnected, indifferent. Meursault attends his mother's funeral but doesn't cry. The next day, he goes swimming, meets a girl, Marie, and they go to the movies to see a comedy. Later, he gets involved in a dispute with his neighbor, and on a beach, under a blinding sun, he shoots and kills an Arab man. The second part of the book is his trial, and here's Camus' brilliant twist. Meursault is not judged so much for the murder, but for his character. The prosecutor focuses on the fact that he didn't cry at his mother's funeral. They accuse him of being a moral monster. Meursault is condemned to death, not for what he did, but for what he didn't do. He is condemned because he refuses to lie. He refuses to feign a sorrow he didn't feel at that moment. He refuses to play society's game of appearances. Meursault, in his first part, is the absurd man in his pure but passive state. He lives according to his physical sensations, the heat, the sun, the water, not according to society's abstract rules. He is a stranger to others because he is radically honest. The sun is a central character. It is the oppressive heat, the sun, that blinds him on the beach, which precipitates the shooting. It is the irrational physical world acting upon him. He doesn't kill out of malice, he kills almost by accident, due to an absurd consequence of physics. But Meursault's true awakening occurs in prison, awaiting his execution. The chaplain visits him, desperately trying to get him to repent and turn to God. He wants to offer him the leap of faith we discussed. Meursault, who had been silent, explodes. He erupts in anger. He shouts at the chaplain that none of it matters, that the life he lived is the only one he has, and that the certainty of death is the only truth. He rejects salvation. He rejects future hope. And after the chaplain leaves, the transformation occurs. Meursault, emptied of hope, calms down. And for the first time, he opens up. He opens up to what he calls the tender indifference of the world. He realizes that the world is indifferent to him, and that's okay, that he is equal to the world. He feels so brotherly with that indifferent universe that for the first time, he is happy. For everything to be consummated, he says at the end, for me to feel less alone, I had only to wish that there should be a crowd of spectators at my execution, and that they should greet me with cries of hate. It's a shocking conclusion. Meursault finds absurd happiness. Like Sisyphus, the moment he accepts his destiny, death without hope and without appeal, he becomes free. He reconciles with his life, just as it was, and with the world, just as it is. So where is the meaning? For Camus, meaning is not something we find like hidden treasure. It's not in God, nor in history, nor in an ideology. Meaning is something we create. We create meaning through rebellion. We create meaning through solidarity with others, like Dr. Rieu. We create meaning through radical honesty with ourselves, like Meursault. And we create it through something else, something that was central to Camus' personal life, the love for the physical world, the love for the sun, the sea, the beauty of the human body. This is what is sometimes called the Mediterranean Camus. For Camus, who grew up in poverty in Algeria, the beauty of the world was his only wealth. And it was a wealth available to everyone equally. The sun does not discriminate. The sea is a physical joy that requires no philosophical justification. In an absurd world, physical beauty is an anchor. It is an undeniable truth. The pleasure of a healthy body, the caress of the sun, the taste of food, these are not distractions from the absurd. They are the answer. They are the yes we give to life. In his Nuptials, he writes, "In the midst of winter, I found there was, within me, an invincible summer." This phrase encapsulates his philosophy. The winter is the absurd, the suffering, the plague, death. But within us, in our capacity to rebel, to love, and to feel beauty, there is an invincible summer. Happiness, therefore, is not just a possibility, it is almost a moral duty. To be happy, despite the absurd, is the ultimate act of rebellion. It is our way of spitting in the face of fate, of stealing victory from death. Camus asks us to be saints without God. Dr. Rieu is a saint without God, a man who dedicates himself to the common good without expecting any celestial reward. His only reward is solidarity itself, the clear conscience of having done what is right. This brings us to his last novel, The Fall. It's a darker, more cynical book. Narrated by a man, Camus, who calls himself a judge penitent. He realized his own hypocrisy, that his goodness was merely vanity. The Fall is a warning. It is Camus telling us, beware of self-justification, beware of believing yourself the hero. Rebellion must be humble. We must recognize our own capacity for evil, our own complicity in the absurd. Tragically, Camus' life was cut short. In 1960, at 46, he died in a car accident. He had won the Nobel Prize 3 years earlier. In the wrecked car, they found the manuscript of his unfinished novel, The First Man, an autobiographical work about his childhood in Algeria. His death was in itself absurd, a blind, irrational fate that silenced one of the century's most lucid voices. But his work was already complete in its central message. What then is Albert Camus' legacy? What does he leave us today? He leaves us first a brutal honesty, the courage to look the world in the face and not turn away, to accept the absurd without falling into despair. He leaves us an ethics without God, a morality based on human solidarity. In a post-religious world, Camus gives us a reason to be good. I rebel, therefore we exist. My freedom ends where yours begins. I must fight for your dignity as if it were my own, because it is. He leaves us a philosophy of the body and the sun, a call not to forget the beauty of the world, not to sacrifice the present for an abstract future, to find happiness in the immediate, in the sea, in the sun, in the love for physical life. And he leaves us that unforgettable image, Sisyphus, happy. A reminder that the meaning of life is not a destination, it is a journey. That dignity lies not in winning, but in fighting. And that our greatest victory against an indifferent universe is our decision to keep pushing our rock, and to do it with a smile. Camus's journey takes us from the cold recognition of the absurd to the warm flame of rebellion and solidarity, and finally, to the difficult conquest of personal meaning. He teaches us that even in an indifferent universe, we have a mission. That mission is to be lucid, to be rebels against injustice, to be in solidarity with our fellow travelers, and above all, to be happy, to love life despite everything, or rather, to love life precisely because of everything. Reading Camus doesn't give you easy answers. It doesn't give you a dogma to believe in. It gives you something far more valuable. It gives you courage. The courage to live your own life, to create your own meaning, and to find your own invincible summer, even in the harshest of winters. I hope this deep dive has been as revealing for you as it always is for me to revisit this giant. Camus is not a philosopher to merely read. He is a philosopher to live. His thought is an antidote to the cynicism and nihilism of our own era. It reminds us that while the struggle is unending, human decency and the beauty of the world will always give us a reason to continue. Thank you truly for joining me on this intellectual journey. It's been an honor to explore these ideas with you. If this analysis of Albert Camus has inspired you or made you think, please subscribe for more in-depth analyses of the ideas and thinkers that have shaped our world. And now I'd love to hear from you. Which of Camus' ideas resonates most with you today? Is it the absurd of Sisyphus, the rebellion of Rio, or the happiness of Meursault? Leave it in the comments below. Dialogue is the best way to honor a thinker like him. Until next time,